Lewis and Benedikt, a very warm welcome to the Aligned Founder podcast. How are you feeling?
Thank you so much.
Feeling very well. Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we
Very
just had
present.
a little breath work just before. How was that for you guys?
Feeling very, very calm and centered now.
Good.
And excited for the conversation.
Good. How about you?
So I think feeling present is the best word to describe it. Positive, joyful, easy.
Nice. What came up for you in the journey today? What did you notice, or what insights did you get?
So for me, at the beginning, I was still a bit focused with the technique, getting into it. But once we reached, I think, the high point of our exercise, to me, I had different things coming up. One of them was quite a vivid picture of my grandfather and a combined feeling of a lot of gratitude for the things I've been able to do so far in my life and how everything contributed to where I also am today. And throughout that, I evolved into different kind of insights and lessons here and there. But overall, a very calm and enjoyable experience.
Nice. How about you, Benny?
Yeah, for me, it was a very, very calm and resting experience. I felt a sense of calmness that I've never experienced in a similar way, actually, and which I don't experience in the day-to-day. And also felt during the peak like a deep sense of gratitude for what we are able to do, what we are allowed to do, and whom we are doing our work with, and whom are we enjoying our life with. And also one learning that I feel like I internalized is about transparent communication and honest communication. Something which has been probably the lessons have been learned over the last 2 years, where it has first been like applied also in the business setting, but now also in the private life more and more. And I feel like transparent communication is something which can, just makes everything, every relationship, every interaction way easier.
Yeah. Amen to that. Well, I hope that we can get into some really transparent communication momentarily. Glad that you guys enjoy the journey, and I'm excited to go on a second journey now and see what emerges. First of all, it would be great if you guys could just introduce who you are, a little bit about yourself, and what it is you guys do.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So my name is Morgner. I'm 24 years old, and I'm one of the co-founders of Jamie, an AI-based startup that allows you to get rid of all the busy work you hate in your daily life and automate it through AI. We started by doing meeting notes, so we developed software which takes meeting notes for you very easily across any tool in business writing, human quality. So that's where we are today. But where did this really start for me? When I was quite young, I think the biggest turning point was getting my first computer when I was around 12 or 13 years old. And since then, to the disliking of my parents to a degree, I spent more time in the world building things with my computer, be it robots, websites, designs, whatsoever, and less time on school. Nevertheless, this led me very soon into the kind of startup ecosystem with first YouTube videos from Y Combinator that I saw that really inspired me to channel my urge to create and shape things in the world that people can touch and see, whether it's design, an app, or something else, into what then became our first company. We actually together also studied in Maastricht, were roommates, and started the company more than 3 years ago together in our room in Maastricht. So know each other for quite a long time and are very good friends.
Yeah, I'm Benedikt, also one of the co-founders of Jamie. And
what a coincidence.
What a coincidence to us both sitting here. We actually met while playing tennis, I think like 10 years ago or something.
Wow.
We used to play doubles together and then always talk about different ideas on the bench while having a break. And I think also that was also one of the moments where the idea of starting a company kind of evolved. And studied in Maastricht as well, also did an exchange in Paris, and have worked in startups before next to studying. And then in my, I believe, second year in Maastricht, we decided to found something together. Got a first small angel investment back then, and started to just try different stuff next to studying part-time back then. and now I've been living in Berlin for a little bit more than a year now. And yeah.
Why Berlin?
Good question. So to us, one important moment over the last years where we built different products, we tried different things, and each of these iterations kind of taught us a new thing, allowed us to kind of evolve into the next level. One important turning point was like 1.5 years ago when we met Böhringer, who's also one of our investors in the company, and ended up being on board with us, working very closely with the things we do. We on the one hand said, hey, it would be wonderful to be more close to each other and have the presence to talk about strategy, the things that we're doing, because it's just more fun than a Zoom call in the end to really be with each other in that journey. So it was one of the reasons. The other reason is in Germany, the best spot to build technology-focused companies, especially like focused on software, is probably still Berlin, because you have all the venture capital funds sitting around here. You have a lot of other people who are on a similar journey as you are, and having this environment gives you not only good ideas but also a lot of determination and re-encouragement for the journey that you are on. So that was also a natural calling. For me personally, another calling was also Berlin. To me, feels a bit like the city of creativity in many ways, because you have a high density of creative people, whether it is in film, in music, in writing, in media, wherever it is. And to me, as also not only the creation of products, designing and coding is one part of what I love doing, it's also other parts. I always had a natural curiosity to move here. Like I said, I just love the city and very happy to be here. And were, for me at least, or us to a degree also, the motives to come here.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, for me also, despite the business rationales behind it, because it just made sense, of course. But for me, it was also, I lived in Cologne for a while after finishing my studies again. And this is also where I grew up, like close to Cologne at least. And for me, it was just like, I was at a point where I could either stay in Cologne or, of course, try to go experience something new again, set up a new base somewhere. And then I was really, excited about that and moving on and creating kind of a new chapter of life. And for me, Berlin feels like the right place now. And it has been a great year here. I really, really enjoyed. So definitely a decision which I don't regret.
Nice. So something I'm really curious about is what happens in someone's life to go from like going through a typical education, you know, in Cologne or somewhere in Germany, and then deciding to go down the world of starting a company. Like, where did you guys get that idea from? Or what do you think happened in your early life that kind of planted that seed?
For me, it's hard to say. I never had like the plan to start a company. I was never like 16, 18, 20 or something. Okay, 20, yes, but at 18 or 19, I was never the person who said, okay, I really want to build my own company. But looking back, it kind of made sense because I always started to do some stuff on the sides. Like, for example, very young age, started to reselling sneakers and was always trying to do something my own.
Yeah.
And my life has been pretty much driven also by a lot of curiosity and starting something new, experience something new. So, for example, back in high school, I went to the US for a year, which probably then led me to later study in Maastricht, to go abroad again, and which also made the decision probably to move to Berlin, to a new place again, quite easy. And for me, it's really the curiosity and finding out what's possible, what motivates me there.
Yeah, to me, also, as you asked about the early childhood, maybe even experience that led me to who I am also today. I think one thing that comes up that my parents definitely allowed me to just spend my time on whatever I really wanted, and were really supportive in that, which was definitely a big helper and just allowing me very early to try things left and right. Combined with that, I had not the most fun at school, meaning I was very bored, spent very little time as probably every young kid. But the lucky thing was, outside of school, as then I had very early exposure to computers and the digital world. And the internet to me was basically an infinite world of things where I can just follow my natural curiosity, which is amazing, which led me to spend my time in a quite productive way. And I just found out over those years when I was like 12 to 16, that I just love creating things online. I did little YouTube channel designs, I did 3D design, I did graphic design, I built software, built website, I designed websites. So all those
coding and this
all these things were just a natural way for me to figure out, hey, I see this in the world, this website, this app, this software, how can I create that? Or build little games and robots, this sort of stuff. And back then, I mean, the idea was never, oh, I want to create the company, and it made perfect sense from then. But now, also as I look back, obviously those things emerged into quite productive setup, which now means doing what we do today. So it was never, I think, also for both of us, really about for the sake of saying, hey, we want to create a company for the sake of being a company and having employees and like calling ourselves whatever. It was always just about the idea itself. And for me personally, because I'm also on the product side in our company, so working a lot on the design, on the creation of the essence that we want to bring out, the act of creation is what excites me. And a company happens to be a good way to do that, especially in tech, because you can create things very quickly. And that was, for me, I think, the journey to where I am today.
Nice. So what I hear is curiosity and creativity.
Probably.
Pretty cool. It's funny because, you know, I had an interview the other day with two other founders who are maybe 10 years down the line. And their reason for I don't want to work for a boss. It's basically their main reasoning. Does that come into it for you guys at all, like the freedom to be able to choose?
So to me, today I can see it more clearly and probably can articulate it clearer than I could back then, but it was still the same thing. The thing I value most in my life is the autonomy and liberty to spend the time on the things that I think are useful, that excite me. Right?
Yeah.
And if you're in a given job and you have those hierarchies and you're there for a job, this autonomy, that freedom really is reduced.
The death of the creativity, really.
In a sense.
Or it's pushed into a small box.
Exactly. And that is something I never really liked. Surely there are jobs out there which allow you to be creative and to be free to an extent. But to me, having this, almost this right to self-determinedly decide what you want to do and not to do is probably the biggest blessing and privilege I value every single day. And thus, choosing the entrepreneurial path makes a lot of sense because ultimately you're in charge and you can decide and you have that freedom. So to me, there was definitely always this intrinsic need to have autonomy and freedom to do what I really want to do.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like there's a bit of a double-edged sword in that? Because like, I think in theory, choosing entrepreneurship sounds like, great, I get to do what I want, you know? But then often within that, in the confines of like, maybe we pick an idea that's exciting to us or something, but within that, there's a lot of shit that we probably don't also want to do, that we have to do. Do you feel there's a difference in like, we'll say, almost like the illusion of like, we're choosing it, that makes it easier to do those things that we don't want to do?
Yeah, of course, not like always the dream and full autonomy, because there's still some stuff that you need to do and which you probably don't enjoy. But still, like on average, I believe the autonomy by far outweigh the downsides of it. Also for me, something which I was never a motivation to be like not led by a boss, for example. But it's now something which I highly appreciate, especially when looking at the people I'm working with. It's now a team that we built, and those are all people we enjoy working with. Yeah. And this is something which you cannot, with a lot of luck, maybe, but likely you're not going to work within a team in which you like pretty much everyone and like to spend time with them every day. So therefore, that's something I very, very much appreciate.
Nice.
Yeah, to me, I think if we talk about the two sides of the coin, right? The autonomy on one hand, but also the potential downside that comes with that. I think the thing that is most difficult also for us in a sense that now changed, which takes away from the autonomy, is the expectations you have from all the different people involved. This can be your investors, this can be your advisors, this can be your employees, people that work with you every single day, but also we as co-founders, there's given expectation expectations implicitly or explicitly that you have, and those of course constrain it in a degree. And then it's always the question of how attached are you to that? Where do you draw the line? And drawing that line is important, because if you don't, in the end you will end up working more than everyone else on the weekends and so on. And we also have those times, surely those are part of it as well. But drawing that line in the right place is, I think, extremely important, to not in the end basically just have a job for your investors or for whoever is also involved as a stakeholder in your company.
Yeah, nice. And how has the transition been from going from like hanging out in college, playing tennis, doing a bit of coding on the side maybe, to effectively being leaders and having other people, like other humans, looking to you saying, what do we do now? How has that process been, that transition?
It was actually very, very natural and like a pretty smooth process, I would say, because since we co-founded the company next to studying, had a first employee there already, so it was just one though, but still.
The first lab rat to test on kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. Had our first developer there, and did everything part-time, so didn't really have like a full study life, I would say. Because there was always the business on the side. And then afterwards it just naturally grew. So I had one or two more people, then did the next step with moving to Berlin, set up the office now pretty recently. So for me it wasn't like a hard change, to be honest, but just like a natural evolvement over the last now more than 3 years, which is of course a long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, I think the transition from just working out of your dorm basically for fun to also having a team now, I mean, we're still small, but still there's people, I think comes back to also the expectations those people have of you. And yes, you need to lead the way. But ultimately, I mean, we learned all those management leadership stuff in business school. But as I now see it,
anyway.
the theory at least, but now in the real world, like especially in early stage tech-focused companies, it comes down, I think, to one thing, or like two things. The first thing is that you need to be able to excite the people that you work with. They need to generally share that vision. You need to make it very vivid so people can, together with you, see that goalpost at the end of the journey, right? And go into that direction. And the second thing is really all about focus. You just need to make sure that everyone in a company is working on the most important things at all times. And if you, I think, are successful in both of these, probably 80% of being a leader is already done. And that's, I think, the main object, especially in early stage companies like ours at the moment.
Yeah, nice. So it sounds like you guys had a positive experience studying in Maastricht.
Yeah.
Like my experience of university was pretty non-reporting, like apart from the good times I got to have and the freedom. And sometimes nowadays universities get a bit of a bad rep as to they're not really actually helping people prepare for the real world. So how much do you feel that you learned in your time in university from like the actual content of what you were being taught you can directly apply to the work you're doing today?
So to me, it's not about the content in university. It's about the character traits and the person you become around that. Because for the first time, you're responsible for your own choices. You can say, I will continue this study path, I will do something else, or I will quit. Right?
Or I will drink all weekend and sleep all week.
Exactly. And this self-control, for instance, is something that you learn there perfectly. A bachelor degree to me, or even a master's, is just to prove that you're able to do hard things. Because if you want to do a bachelor, like let's say even in computer science, or also in like business-related studies, which have a bit of economics, you need to prove that you can do hard things. And I think there's definitely value in there, which shapes you as a person.
Totally.
Maybe it's not the content. I don't remember all the fancy models and theories we learned back in these days. But what I do now is that it really shaped me as a character and developed what I am or who I am as a person. And this, I think, is an incredible place at university. You meet many young people all around you, also in Maastricht, which are excited to try things you can talk about. You do extra activities next to studies. And I think if you play it the right way and not only see, it's this institution, I need to do it, but we see it as an unfolding of a lot of young people with a lot of potential, it can be a great time. And I would actually also recommend, even though for a long time I didn't want to go to university, now after having done it, that you should go there, because it really is a nice place of unfolding for you as a person in a very dense environment of young people with a lot of creative drive together. And that's, I think, in the end was what also we valued in Maastricht and which helped us in our journey.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit controversial to what others also say, but
Sure.
That's how I feel today about it in a genuine way.
Probably also the process of moving away from your hometown as well.
Exactly.
And going to a different country in your guys' case, like that's huge.
Growing up.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's also not about the content, which we learned. I believe, yeah, it's really about the content. Maybe that's also something which is related to business studies and the business study content, of course. But for me, that wasn't super valuable, but it was really about the personal development which happened during that 3 years of going somewhere, then also learning by yourself, working in small groups and teams, like building some soft skills around that. For example, we had a lot of group work, many presentations every week and deadlines, and also kind of learning to work hard, because Maastricht is not quite easy. They also like expect a lot from you, and also the people that you meet. So you build a lot of a good network, which can help you later on, of course, in your career, and all very nice and people that have a similar mindset and similar way of thinking about life, which is a super pleasant time then that you can have together.
Yeah.
Maybe even two things to add. Like a lot of people who also stayed at Maastricht now work at our company. So we hired a lot of people from there, which obviously is a nice benefit because people know you. They know that you are doing something startup related, and there's some
serial
interest.
killer.
There you go. So the trust is established to some level. But that was, I think, a big up. The other thing I read the other day, just an insight, basically fundraising performance of founders given their degree of education. And what you see is that indeed, the higher your level of education is, so going from bachelor's to master's to MBA, and maybe even PhD, it tends to perform better as a founder in that fundraising process. So especially if you build a business which is a VC case, which is related to attracting funding from especially institutional investors, the way they behave, it appears just from this study that there is actually positive effect. It doesn't mean that both co-founders or all co-founders need to have that. And there's different roles, but I think on the financial side, there's definitely correlation, and this definitely also helps for someone who wants to raise rounds for their venture.
Yeah. Benny, you're on the PhD. Big one for the team.
Yeah, I was doing that now for 2 or 3 years.
And do you think that that's like, it's kind of like a correlation causation thing there? Do you think that there's like, because people are naturally more inclined to study and do more work and do more hard things, that they then build a better company and then push harder to attract investment? Or is it that they just, investors like the sound of that?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, one thing is that investors, I believe, sure like the sound of that. And if there's like a brand on the CV.
Kind of like having the blue check mark in academic.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Which you can also kind of pay for as well if you really want.
Yeah. But in addition to that, I believe that, I mean, of course, a higher level of education also comes with more experience in general, because most likely if you've done a PhD, you've worked in a specific field maybe, in which you found a company then later on, or if you're doing an MBA, you have some working experience at a huge consultancy, for example. So this is also more experience that the person themselves has at that point. So I don't know if it's like, I mean, it's of course correlated, but I don't know if it's only the branding aspect about it.
Sure.
Ultimately, it's about trust, right? And if a fund doesn't know you, if an investor doesn't know you, looking for signals to
socially approved cues, basically.
Yeah. And especially if you're an institutional investor, you have your fiduciary duty towards the people who invested in your fund. So thus, you need those points. So thus, I think it really matters. So is it the reason that, this stuff you learn, if you continue with your academic education, is really making you a better fundraiser? Maybe not, but it's definitely the level of trust that makes a difference, which, as Benny mentioned, will help you raise money more easily from VCs. But also us saying that very early on our journey, right? We don't have those proof points yet where we did this for 10 years. We really have those comparison points. It's a lot of intuition that we developed, and also based on the studies, the things we hear from others. Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, work in progress.
Yeah.
How do you guys find in the startup world the difference between how people present themselves, either online or maybe in person at events, versus how their company is actually performing? What's the difference? Just on that topic, because we've got people who can present with a very good resume, but then can they actually like step up to the plate?
I mean, of course, everyone presents themselves, I believe, a little bit better on the internet and do like a lot of personal branding. Which is, of course, also quite important.
It's something you guys do quite well, I think, in terms of like introducing the people on your team and kind of creating a bit more of I think, an energy around what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that attracts interest, I think, it's cool.
Yeah, I think we still need to do it a little bit more and better, but thanks already. No, but I feel like in general, like, of course, everyone presents himself in a better way online. But I feel like if you talk to the people, like if you talk to the startup ecosystem in general, everyone is, what I believe, really honest.
Yeah.
Or actually pretty honest, at least how I perceive it, and also super helpful, which is something I really appreciate as a first-time founder and being new, like in Berlin and in the startup ecosystem. So this is my experience with it so far.
Nice.
I might have a bit of a controversial opinion on that. I think it would be an interesting study to run in general, but I think there's two buckets of people putting out content.
Yeah.
There's the bucket of people who are doing content for the sake of content, companies creating white papers and sharing it on LinkedIn for the sake of we need to have something, and it's a bit of artificially manufactured. And there's this other bucket of, I think, people who rather document a journey, who just share, hey, these are the people working here, this is what we shipped here, this is what we're currently doing. And to me, I think the second bucket is highly effective because it lets people buy into your mission as a company, into the people behind it. It opens up for people to follow along, and people want to follow a journey. They want to see how everyone is doing. They're interested in staying in touch. And I think this really works. But I think the first bucket, where it's just content for the sake of content, to me personally, I don't find it attractive. I rather see a company, founders sharing authentically, documenting what they're doing, than creating content out of thin air and just saying, like, here, this is our top 5 infographic on productive. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I also think if you look at the numbers from other companies and founders sharing stuff and the success also associated to that, I think the most successful founders and companies who are like really in the top percentile of companies, they probably don't do content for the sake of content, but the only thing they might do is just document the journey. But that's what we do. We don't sit down, have meetings, hey, this is all the content we should do and whatever. It's just natural in the sense that we say, hey, we want to document left and right. Also for personal accounts in a sense, but also early, right? So early findings and hypothesis around that.
I suppose it comes down to like where you're attracting your client base from as well, Like if you're targeting people that you're getting them to sign up through social media, then I suppose infographics might be more targeted at those specific people, maybe,
100%.
Versus like you guys are more doing like your organic outreach, and then that's more just like a behind the scenes business card kind of thing.
And also, this is just a world, I think, where there's many truths in this statement, right? It could be true what I said, could be true something else. It really depends on, I think, the entire context of a company, of a founder, right? There's not like one truth. It's the truth that you have for that company in context.
Yeah, totally. So why did you guys decide to jump on and be one of the first to work with this lovely technology called AI?
So I don't know if we really have been that early if you zoom out a bit, because there were a lot of research efforts being done many years before we started.
The Chinese have been at it for many years.
For instance, yeah. But to us, I think it was also a bit of like a natural unfolding. Probably like around 3 years ago, also while I was still in university. I mean, I love creating products and building things, and I have a huge appreciation for technology as it is. And of course, this field called deep learning and also AI and large language models, so everything to do with natural language, interested me quite a bit, just from a natural curiosity. So back then I just started doing like some deep learning courses, understanding how to train different classifiers and regression models, and then also get a bit into large language models. So this was where I just tried to understand this stuff because it seemed interesting. And then we were building a different product back then, like 2 years ago. And like from a random conversation, we kind of had this idea, hey, we can build a meeting note-taking assistant, like something that takes away busy work for you. And this then just added up together. So it was never, hey, now we want to create the AI company. It was rather, hey, there's a use case, there's something that we would love to see in the world that existed. And then we went out to create it, and AI happens to be the technology powering that. Also important to note, I think we weren't definitely not the first ones doing meeting note-taking, but the products that we've seen out there really sucked. They were poor in quality. They were very bad to use. They always had a bot, for example, joining your meetings. They didn't work in offline meetings. And we saw all of those problems, and our hypothesis then evolved around that, saying, hey, we can build a better product with that, with the cutting-edge technologies, especially large language models in AI, that we have out there today. And this was, I think, the starting point then for this chapter, Jamie, that it is today with AI. And I think so far we're doing quite well. I think we have the world's most advanced product in the meeting note-taking space. We're on to building the next generation of our product, which will allow you to basically automate any task that you already do in your workflow. It's sort of like Jamie being a shadow with you all the time and only comes in the right moment. And I think we're, at the moment, one of the most talented teams worldwide working on that. But still, there's a lot of things to figure out. It's a highly dynamic environment. The world's smartest people are working in that field. So you never ultimately know how this unfolds, but we do have a very clear sense of where we are going and how we actually bring technology to useful use cases to people all around the world. And we determined on that plan to see how things fall down. I'm super excited for that.
Nice. Anything you want to add to that, Benny?
Nothing to add, actually. I think that was like quite a good picture of where we're going.
Good, nice. And how do you guys feel about the general, let's say, direction of like the world adopting more to AI? And they talk about this, like what will happen in the next years and stuff. Like, where do you guys see that? Because you're a bit more in, like, you've got your feet a bit more in that world versus like the average office worker who's just like watching Netflix at night, you know?
So I think the first intuition on that is that it's nothing new that we see. In the history, if you look back the last 50, 100 years or even longer, there have always been levels of automation, meaning some sort of manual labor now becomes automated through some sort of technology. And that's just the natural evolution of technological progress we see in the world. And to AI, yes, now it's intelligent, so it can automate other things that you previously thought are impossible to automate. But ultimately, it's the same dynamic that we see for decades probably already in regards to technological progress through research and science. This whole debate around will it take over the world and will it become smarter than humans? Will it become its own thing that then destroys everything? To me, is very far away from where we are today with technology. If you look at even the most advanced large language models, which currently is what we all call AI, all this does is basically an autocorrect feature on your phone on steroids, where it just generates the next word over and over again, and you give it prompts, and it gives you the illusion of being very smart, and it is smart. It's super useful, no doubts about that. For example, when coding, developers now can become 10 to 100x more productive if they use it right, and that is insane. That's a huge productivity gain. But ultimately, you still need the developer because it helps you to get rid of those mundane tasks of writing unit tests, of writing some sort of styling stuff, and you can now get this done instead of spending an hour in 2 minutes, which is amazing, right? But this, I mean, it's not taking over the world in that sense. So it will definitely change our society in foundational ways of how work is being done. Also, I think the optimal size of companies will decrease because you can be more productive with less people. And also, I think this quote or like this idea from Sam Altman he shared on a podcast was that unicorns of 10 or of 1 people will become possible. And I totally believe that it's just a question of time because all your actions are just leveraged 100, 1,000x, even more than that through AI. But at the same time, if you look at the technology today, it is still quite basic. It is super useful, but it's, I think, far away from really being the scary vision that everyone talks about. Yes, we have companies like OpenAI and others working on AGI, so artificial general intelligence, whose aim is basically to exceed human intelligence and create this thing that creates its next version and recursively gets smarter. But I think from the ideas we currently see in the field, we're still a bit far away from that. Maybe it happens someday. Also, the research, I'm not a research expert on that topic, but what we see in the applied world, this scary vision is still a bit of a stretch. A whole other conversation around elections and what this impact on society, and there is a lot of impact on society we need to have answers to and find answers to. But ultimately, it's the same thing just happening again, maybe now with a bit more velocity, meaning it happens quicker, it takes over certain areas quicker, but ultimately it's pretty much a known principle from, at least how I see it.
Sure, yeah. How about you?
For me, I mean, of course, everyone in our like kind of small circle bubble is quite bullish on the topic of AI. But what's important for me is when looking at the society, for example, to give way more education actually on the topic and earlier, because people read some news, some headlines, and read about some math test, for example, at universities where AI helped or performed better than a student, for example. And I think those headlines are what make the people scared, and also because they don't understand the topic. I mean, which is totally, of course, understandable, because everyone cannot be like an expert in AI and can spend a lot of time with it. But I believe also when looking like at the next generations, it's very, very important to educate in schools, for example, on AI quite early on, to not have this big difference in society with people really knowing about it and people not knowing about it at all, and just having this scary black box, for example. So, yeah.
And one thing to add also to that thought is, I think the worst response any education institute or society in general or any company could have is to ban AI. That's probably the stupidest thing you can do. Because if we look 10 years into the future, like next generation of founders creating amazing things, if you know how to make AI work for you, if you know how to use it the right way, it just leverages the things you can create by orders of magnitude. And the stupidest response is to say, hey, no, don't use it. No, teach people to use it, like show them how they can use it, because currently there's a huge arbitrage opportunity if you know how to use it better than others. And that's what we're benefiting from also in the way we build our company. Probably smaller than some of our competitors, but more productive in some dimensions. Why? Because I think we're more radical in the way we embrace AI, which is easier for us because we're an early company, we're very young, we're very small. But I think that's just an important paradigm to also keep in mind when thinking about how to go from here, how to decide as a policymaker, as an educational institute, as a company.
I think it because in some ways, people could say it's taking over some elements of the creative process, but in a way, it's almost like becoming even more creative as the prompter. Like the one who asks the best prompt gets the best product from AI, and how to use the vision of what's capable of. Like even originally when people were first messing with like Mid-Journey, creating cool photos, or getting them to write an essay for them, and then you've got someone like Alex Hormozy talking about, okay, well, you can use it to come up with like 100 business ideas and then iterate them and test them, and then you can get it to write all the sales copy for this one and all the email sequences, and it can do that, but it's having the vision to see, oh, I'm thinking this big. So it's the people who can think big will be the ones who ultimately get the most out of the same tool that every Sally and Tom has access to, but maybe don't have the capacity of thought to actually leverage it properly.
Yeah, I think the effect is that skill becomes commoditized. So you no longer need to be a great graphic designer to do some Mid-Journey images. No longer you need to be a great copywriter, learn all the skills. You can just use it's not perfect, but to an extent, GPT. And thus, I think decision-making and taste becomes more important. Taste in the sense of an artist, you still need to evaluate what is good, what is not good. And decision-making in the sense of anyone who tries to create products like we do in the marketplace. And there your decisions should become more important because you can have more velocity behind them because skill is commoditized to a large degree. And one just small anecdote on that end, we had an intern at our company who was basically quite unexperienced in the field of coding and engineering. And now just over the last 3 months, he basically is on the level of a regular engineer with the help of AI. Surely he has not all the experience left and right, but he is as productive as a regular engineer who has been with us for quite some years, for instance. And that is something I think is just remarkable. Again, skill becomes commoditized, but your decision-making will become more important.
Yeah. Nice. I had a client yesterday, and I kind of had this idea for a cool idea for a session, and it was amazing to me of like, oh, maybe I could use GPT for this. And I basically, this book that we had worked through, I got it like to analyze the book and then break down the chapters and then create questions on the basis of each chapter, and then make the questions more triggering and thought-provoking, and then take these questions, turn it into a card game, and then printed it out. And then we had like, basically flashcards. So it was like a very personalized like game based on the work that we'd done. And it was like, it took like 5-10 minutes, and it's like, so I loved that because it was like an idea I had, but I could bring it to fruition very fast, so that I really love that. And I'm sure there's like so many bigger iterations of that of where it can be used, but that was my kind of fun little playtime.
And imagine that at scale, what it does for humanity, right?
Totally.
Huge possibility. Everyone talks about the downsides because, I mean, risky crisis headlines sell, right? That this
Sure,
gets
yeah.
attention, but ultimately, I think the impact this can have on humanity, on the things we do, on removing laborious work that we don't like doing, is tremendous. And that's why we also think it's one of the most exciting opportunities we're working on with Jamie at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, excited for what is to come for all of us.
So what's your guys' like kind of vision with the company? Where do you see it moving in the next kind of 2-3 years?
Yeah. So what's our vision? So with Jamie, we want to save everyone time on busy work so that you don't need to spend any second on repetitive work or on any workflow which we call busy work.
Yeah.
So pretty much eliminate busy work once and for all. And I think that's something which is going to be possible during the next 2-3 years for sure.
Yeah.
So let's chat again then. But definitely something which we'll do now and roll out over the next couple of months already.
Yeah.
But then expand it over the next years.
Nice.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of different sides also to this. Of course, on the product side, we are excited about giving people time back with our products. We started with meeting notes, now we do more. That is super exciting. But at the same time, we're also on a journey as a small team, even though we're just 10 people, culturally to shape the company in a way we would like to work there. And what we're starting to do also with a lot of very mindful work with a leadership coach, Matthias Müller-Lindenberg, which we work with, which has been a great advisor to us. We really try to create is basically a culture of finding your inner genius in a sense and really living that out and really seeing, okay, what is your intrinsic interest in something? And if there's something you're intrinsically interested in, you will have the opportunity to become world class at it. And if that is not given, then we should find something else in that company. And combined to that, I think also on radical transparency, maybe you can add on that, is also one of the core principles we try to build this company. And so if I think about vision, it's also about the people, the place we create to work. And currently we are all excited, like childlike excitement also sometimes, where we're just happy, grateful, and super energized and have a good time. At the same time, we're also very productive, determined, and super ambitious. But this is a nice place, and we want to double down on that, I think, and let this unfold also even more.
There's this kind of analogy I like to use, which is like when we can tap into that inner kind of feeling of like in whatever we're intuitively called to do, like the inner GPS, whatever that calls us towards. If we can do things and spend more of our time and more of our day following that fuck yes, as it would be, then we're effectively leveraging the internal Tesla battery, like the self-generating power battery. Okay. And then anytime that we're doing something that isn't linked to our bigger why or isn't part of that like deeper purpose, then we're now tapping into like the raw fuel, like we're now burning petrol and it's like quite inefficient and, you know, energy consuming. So it's like, how can we tap more and more every day into that, as you said, inner genius, and then get everyone doing that so that basically the company is, you know, carbon neutral, as it would be.
100%. I think that's also been the journey for us in the last 3 years, or even before that. We do mindfulness practices, we meditate. I think we journaled very early on until this day, very frequently. We're also obsessed with this sort of reflecting, becoming the next evolution of yourself in a sense, and talk a lot about this as friends and co-founders, like very close friends. And what this also leads us to, I think, see now is that we have now the vocabulary, we understand it on a different level, and this is now the foundational belief on what we try to do with the company. But also beyond that, like I think friends we talk to, we like have this belief of the world now, and we try to kind of light a fire with those people around as well. And that's, I think, something exciting we want to also continue doing from here, in one way or the other.
And how has that kind of work, whether it's, you know, meditation or personal development work and working with a coach, or even we did some breathwork before, like how have those different modalities and practices supported you guys, or how important is that for just founders in general on that journey?
For me, there are actually two aspects to it. One of it is self-awareness. So kind of, okay, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling right now? Or maybe what triggers me, or what's just the reason behind it, which is something which pretty much applied in the day-to-day. But also for Louis and I believe our relationship as co-founders actually benefited and still benefits quite a lot from that, because we've done also like breathwork, for example, something which we've done together now several times. And Also, the coachings with Matthias, for example, is something which really strengthens our relationship and helps us with communicating very, very openly. Also, for example, criticizing if someone, for example, feels a certain way and then discussing it openly, but without being like personally, too attached in that very, very moment. And this is where I believe those self-awareness practices really help us a lot.
Yeah, to me, how I also use this in my life is basically my morning routine, which sounds super cliche, but ultimately for me it's a building block I do every single day in that exact order, which allows me to be happy, to be present, to be excited by the things we do, be productive, be focused, all these things. And meditation is just one part of that. And I think for this, it's just good to make it part of your identity, or make it part of a ritual, which you do daily, for instance. And I think this has been the biggest also change for me to really say not like I meditate when I feel like it or when I think of it, but it's part of what I do. I don't think about it. It just happens every morning. That's the first thing I do after my morning coffee, I need to admit. Make it part of your system of operation as a person.
Yeah. And in the kind of new wave of up and coming companies and founders in Berlin, do you find that those practices are becoming more and more common, or is it kind of like few and far between? You guys feel a bit like outliers in that sense?
I think there's definitely a much higher awareness for the benefits of these sort of practices. And also, I think if we compare like people who founded companies 20 years ago and how they went through the journey and compared to people who do it today at a young age, definitely is a whole shift around mindfulness, about really finding out what you really love. And I think that's a beautiful change. But I also don't only see that for founders, but I think for society in general. Like at universities, people now talk about mental health, a word that they were not able to basically talk about 10 years ago. Probably.
Sure, yeah.
They're able to do meditation classes. People have headspace in their pockets who can, try to meditate with very little barrier to entry. And I think that is good to make it more accessible, because ultimately it's also scientifically proven, make you healthier, happier, more focused, have a better life. So there's really no reason why to not do it.
And I think in an age of technological involvement where as you said, mental health wasn't available 10 years ago to talk about maybe publicly, but there wasn't also the same level of addiction to basically toxic apps and, with the likes of AI and eventually, virtual reality coming and, all these things, I think both are kind of like, it's kind of like both sides of the polarity are increasing. Yes, there's more awareness of these topics, but because I think there needs to be, because there's so much more opportunity for, if your mental health isn't right, to get completely hijacked and go down maybe a dark path. So I think they're, hand in hand nearly. You guys got to attend our first ever retreat last summer. And that was a really fun experience to meet you guys there and to kind of like go a little bit deeper in that world. So how was your guys' experience of doing that as a duo coming into that space? And what were some of the kind of takeaways or insights you took from that experience?
We've both done, I think, one individual breathwork session before. For me, it was really surprising how deep I got to connect with myself during those couple of days, and additionally how deep I got to connect with the other participants there. So before walking in there, the majority of the people attending were strangers to us, to me in the moment. And it was so interesting to see how deep of a connection you can actually form within just a couple of days. And also being completely, I think it was 2-day retreat, if I'm not mistaken, and being completely 2 days offline pretty much and just dealing with yourself was something which was super valuable for me and like a big booster also, and way more beneficial even than just one session. Therefore happy to do it anytime again soon.
We'll put you on the leads list.
Well, I would like to touch upon the second part of your question, also coming into as a duo, right, as co-founders, because that is really a special relationship you have. And I think something that we were blessed to have established the moment we started working together, because we were friends before, was to say, hey, we make the commitment and the agreement that we put the well-being and the fulfillment of the other person beyond the company. which is maybe something people do not like to hear, but that's what we basically said at the very beginning. So what matters to us is the relationship between us, and that's the first thing, right? And then company comes second. Luckily, things work out very well, and it's not becoming a problem in the way we work, which of course can also be a different way, but this was important. And the reason why I say that, I think the typical co-founder relationship, if you haven't been really close friends, but you just create a company because you say, hey, we both have something from a situation.
You have skills, I have skills.
Exactly. We want to work together. It's kind of a trade of things. I think it will be very difficult for both of them in this sort of setting when you're reflective, when you think about your life, when you go deep, to share openly, because you will always have that filter in mind, because there is a bit of agency cost to it, because there's just an asymmetry in the information you want to share. And this is why I would say it's very important if, as a co-founder, for instance, you do these sort of things. In the end, it's individual development. It's becoming more aware of what you want to do about yourself. And it's very, I think, rare that you have this sort of level with your co-founder that you can really, without a filter, share whatever comes up. And this is something I think we value immensely, which makes us so strong as a team together. But at the same time, it's not a given. And I think this must be given if you want to do these sort of things, reflecting, being deep, being open to breathwork, to whatever it may be. So that's, I think, just a word of caution that kind of I have in mind when I think about, hey, would I recommend this to anyone? That's like one thing I would look out for.
Yeah, it's kind of like choose your like spouse or romantic partner wisely and your business partner even more wisely. Because it's entering definitely a world of, challenge, and there's different value systems that get pushed and pulled, and like really things can go tough and people get in stress, and then that's when we react. So having someone you can trust or a group of people you can trust is super important, I think. So yeah, I agree. I think that having spaces like that every now and again to check in and take a few days and, as you said, have a reset and kind of come back and move forward together, I think is really important. And that's kind of like why I think we're super excited about what we're getting to provide those spaces as well. It's awesome. So yeah, speaking of which, you guys have an offsite this weekend. You're leaving very shortly for that. What you guys got planned for that?
So we're going for a week to Italy with the team, or with at least part of the team, and then just working from there. So pretty excited for that, and also with a new version that's coming out today, actually, with a new release where the product team worked very, very hard for over the last couple of, especially hours, but a month in general. I feel like it's a good timing to get out of the office for a while and switch offices and enjoy the nature a little bit. Also, it's quite close to a lake, so maybe do a little bit of ice bathing. So yeah,
I'll let you do that.
Nice. And so this new iteration of the product, what's new? What are the new features in this one that's coming out today?
Yeah. So if you are doing early stage tech, especially software, the thing you optimize for is just the speed at which you test your product. You don't want to get a product out in 6 months, but in like basically 6 days or like a couple of weeks. And we've done just like that. And this is how you ultimately, you're not executing on a business model, but you're finding one. And that's what we did. We were looking for one. So we had this initial product, Jamie, with the AI note-taking, which worked cool. People liked it. People played with it. The early adopters were very forgiving with bugs, but ultimately it's a beta, right? You're very, very quick. There are some sacrifices you do by moving very quickly. And now we made a decision over time, because now we really know, hey, this is working. We have thousands of users worldwide who love what we're doing. And that now is the right time to actually do our homework, go back, make it very robust, and lay the foundation for it to come. So to be frank, like new, it's quite limited. It's really redoing things and moving from a sort of beta product to really a production-ready product. And what we have created now, to us, I think on the UI UX side, just things feel nicer. They're more robust. It feels like you're using a tool which is unfair to know. You're creating an unfair advantage for you as a knowledge worker, someone who works every day hard in meetings and whatsoever. And this is really what this new version is about, which marks then a new chapter for us to fully double down on growth and to fully go into all the motions that we have to grab that market, to go to market and reach more people with the product we believe can really change their lives.
And are you guys currently like in the space of looking for investors or open to investment to help support that growth?
Yeah, so we're currently in a quite interesting journey on that end. Our company is growing very steadily, and there is a path that we see with our team to profitability, which is very, very in front of us. And this gives us kind of these two options. On the one hand, we are very good. We're not in a position very soon where we are reliant on external funding. At the same time, especially now moving away from the note-taking product, but to what we call basically a proactive co-pilot, where it can write emails for you, it can search documents for you, it can do all sort of things that you don't like doing for you. This is a very competitive space. And for this, obviously, you also need the right kind of financing, even though we know how to use AI and so on. So in this sense, we're currently also evaluating different options in our fundraising process to see if we can find the right partner in the coming weeks and months to join us along this journey. But also there's different ways it can play. But currently, yes, excited to raise the next round for the next chapter that is to come.
Nice. So if I'm an investor listening to this and I'm really curious about what you guys are doing and I want to get on board, where would I go? What would I do?
Yeah, probably reach out via LinkedIn or email, which you can maybe add in the show notes. It's how you call it, right?
That's what the cool kids say, yeah.
Yeah, just send an email there.
And tag Jamie for a spin. Everyone can get started for free on our website, meetjamie.ai. You can download it. You can try the product for free for 1 week. And really just try it for yourself. And some people are really mind blown.
Seduced by the machines.
There you go, not the machines, by the things making your life easier and more pleasant, right? So yeah, whoever wants to give it a try, it's out now. And we can't wait to hear feedback if things are going well, not going well. We're here to iterate with our customers together to co-create an experience which really changes their lives. So it's really a two-way street. It's not just us like here, that's what you should use. No, it's co-creation.
Solid pitch.
No.
And finally, if you've got someone who's imagine someone who's like back, maybe just coming out of like university or in Maastricht, maybe that you got like a fan base there or something, but like someone who's very early stage thinking about starting a company or in their first year of having founded their first company and they may be facing some challenges up against some tough times, what advice would you give? What would you say?
It's hard to give an advice which hasn't been given before, to be honest, on that side. But I mean, we've pivoted many times actually before. We've built some different products in the past. And I feel like one thing that's crucial is, of course, to just keep going and keep working on stuff, but be open to like also change ideas, to not be too in love with the first idea and try to really make it happen. But that's a really thin line and something which is hard probably to find the balance, because of the one side you say, okay, keep going. On the other side, you say, okay, try to be open to new ideas. But yeah, keeping that balance there kind of is key. And a lot of trial and error in the beginning.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, from my side, it would probably be maybe not what this question kind of invited, but my advice would be do what you love. In the end, it's really, if you want to make it in any pursuit, you need to be world class at it, because whatever you do today, you're competing on a global scale. And you will never be better than someone who truly loves what they're doing, because this person can just stick with it, spend more time on it, refine their craft even more, and are in it for the long time. They have patience. They can wait 30 years because they know that's the thing they love. They don't need to have this huge financial success yet.
You're already receiving the payoff every day.
Exactly. And if you're doing something that you do not genuinely enjoy, which I think is also the status quo for many, because there is this complex set of expectations and domestication from childhood and growing up and all those things, very hard to break through that. But I think trying this conscious process of breaking through it will not happen from the day to tomorrow, but through becoming mindful, to become meditation, journaling, all these things help you to understand yourself better and build that courage to just in the end do what you love. And that is really the thing you should do. Don't say, because I started this, now I need to finish it because this is what I'm thinking, my ego is telling me to keep going. No.
Otherwise I failed.
You are in control. You can really do with your life whatever you want. There has never been more opportunity to just express your genuine self in this world, and take it, use it, do what you really want to do, and don't wait for it. Time is short.
It's a beautiful way to end. Lewis, Benedikt, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing what you guys cook up with this new system in the world.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Pleasure has been all of mine. Thank you so much, Pete.
Looking forward to round 2.
Thanks.